Welcome back to Harbour Unbox. Today we are checking out the PowerColor RX 5700 Red Devil. This guy right here. And if you think you've already watched this video, you haven't. Well, you might have. If you're watching this exact video again, then you probably have. But if you're seeing this graphics card and thinking you've already seen this review, you haven't, because a few weeks ago we reviewed this one, the 5700 XT Red Devil. And yeah, they look pretty much the same. And that's one of the reasons why PowerColor, they weren't super keen to send out this card for review, because it doesn't really differ too much from this one. So they thought there was really no point. And that's fair enough, but a lot of you had been asking me to look at the non-XT version of the Red Devil because you want to know, well, how it performs for one. You don't want to just assume that it's good because the XT model was good. And you want to know what the differences are. So they look pretty similar on the PowerColor website, but that's not always the case. So anyway, I've decided to review it. That way we can pull it apart and see if there are any differences between these two models. So just to be clear, both models are based on the exact same PCB design and they feature the exact same cooler. And that's great news, as the Red Devil is one of the best 5700 XTs we've seen so far. And that means the 5700 model will also be class leading, as PowerColor hasn't cut any corners here. That said, don't expect the 5700 Red Devil to be anywhere near $350 US, given the XT version commands a $40 premium. And as you might have guessed, the 5700 Red Devil is also priced $40 over the MSRP at $390 US. So while it's still $50 cheaper than the XT version, base model AIB 5700 XT start at $410 US, making them just $20 more. That puts the 5700 Red Devil in a bit of an odd spot. It's no doubt going to be very good, but will it be worth paying almost base model XT money for? Before I jump into the testing, here's a quick look at the card. If you've already watched the XT Red Devil review, then you can probably just skip this part, as they are pretty much the same. For those of you unaware, the Red Devil is a beast of a graphics card. The thing weighs 1.25 kilograms, and that makes it the heaviest 5700 series card that we've come across. It also measures 295 millimeters long, 51 millimeters wide, and 120 millimeters tall, which doesn't actually make it the biggest 5700 we've seen, but boy is it the heaviest. From the front, we have a chunky grey plastic fan shroud complete with 3 90mm fans and a few aluminium trimmings which are screwed into place, giving the card a bit of an industrial look. On the back side of the card, we find a massive full-size backplate with a backlit Red Devil logo. We also find more LED RGB detailings on the side of the card, along with a pair of PCIe power connectors and a small switch for changing between the OC and silent modes. For testing, I stuck with the OC mode, as it's virtually silent anyway. In fact, the only physical change, other than the GPU, between the 5700 and 5700 XT Red Devil that I can spot is the PCIe power input configuration. Whereas the XT model gets a pair of 8-pin connectors, the non-XT version that we have here features a 6+8-pin configuration. Moving on, we have the I/O panel, which is very standard, featuring 3 display outputs along with a single HDMI output. And again, this was the same configuration for the XT version. So really, that's the card externally. Let's take that massive cooler off for a closer look. Again, this is the exact same cooler setup from the XT Red Devil. So again, the heatsink cools not just the GPU, but also the GDDR6 memory and VRM. The base plate is 100% copper, so this means both the GPU and GDDR6 memory get a copper contact, though the VRM features an aluminium plate. Then over on the PCB, we again find the exact same design used by the XT version. So that means the same 7+2+1 phase VRM has been used, and as far as I can tell, every single component is the same. So that's that really. Let's move on to do some testing. As usual, we'll start by firing up F1 2019 and running it on a loop for an hour. This saw the 5700 Red Devil peak at just 66 degrees in a 21-degree room inside the Corsair Crystal 570X, fully populated with 120mm fans. Now, this is just a 3-degree drop in temperature when compared to the XT Red Devil, though the fans were reported to be spinning around 200 RPM slower, so that makes the 3-degree reduction in temperature quite impressive. When compared to the AMD Reference 5700, the Red Devil is a massive upgrade in terms of cooling performance. The blower fan for the reference model spun at 1900 RPM, making it louder, and yet it still hit 75 degrees, so a 9-degree drop in temperature for the Red Devil is certainly no joke. At this temperature, the Red Devil maintained an average core clock frequency of roughly 1710 MHz, and there is quite a lot of variance in clock speed for these 5700 series GPUs, but this was about what we saw from the reference model. As for overclocking, there is still a voltage cap of 1200 millivolts and a frequency cap of 1850 MHz. With the clock set at the cap, we saw a peak operating temperature of 73 degrees, and this saw the fan spinning at almost 1250 RPM, so as you might expect, they were still very quiet. Although we're targeting 850 MHz, the card maintained a clock speed of around 1720 MHz, so a very pointless increase in frequency from the stock. The GDDR6 memory also doesn't respond that well to overclocking, though this isn't because of a hard limit, it's just because the memory doesn't respond well to overclocking. We got another 25 MHz out of it. Okay, so let's move on to the benchmark graphs. As usual, we're using our Core i9 1900K GPU test rig. The CPU's been overclocked to 5 GHz, and we have 16GB of DDR4 3400 memory. The latest drivers available at the time of testing have been used, and for this one, we have just a few select games to look at. First up, we have Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and here the Red Devil 5700 was 7% faster than the AMD reference model, while running much cooler and significantly quieter. Sadly though, manually overclocking the card resulted in basically no performance gain, and that's again due to AMD's limitations. So what you get out of the box is pretty much it, at least without playing around with these soft power play tables, which are a massive pain in the backside and super impractical for daily usage. This time when testing with Forza Horizon 4, we see a mere 3.5% performance gain for the Red Devil 5700 over the AMD reference model. Still, any performance increase while running cooler and quieter is a bonus. Last up, we have Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and this time we're looking at just a 3% increase in performance over the reference model. This meant the 5700 Red Devil was 11% slower than the 5700 XT Red Devil. Now a quick look at power consumption, and here we see when compared to the reference model, the Red Devil 5700 consumes 7% more power, and that's down to the factory overclock. Given it was up to 7% faster in our test, that's not a bad result. We do see a 27% increase in power draw for the GPU when manually overclocking, as we're also increasing the voltage to the maximum value. This is of course unnecessary, as we're not able to increase the operating clock speed, so the manually tuned results are pretty pointless, but I know viewers will want to see them included anyway. This time we see no difference between the reference model and the Red Devil when measuring total system draw, but we do see a massive increase in consumption for the manually overclock configuration, and I just explained the reason for that. Here's a quick look at the peak operating temperature and how it compares to the reference model, along with the 5700 XT Red Devil. When compared to the AMD blower style reference card, the Red Devil is 9 degrees cooler and then 4 degrees cooler than the XT version of the Red Devil. So overall, a good result. As for operating volume, the 5700 Red Devil was very quiet, running 3 decibels quieter than the XT version and a whopping 7 decibels quieter than AMD's reference design. So again, another really good result there. Well, the PowerColor RX 5700 Red Devil performed exactly as expected, and that's a good thing. Like the XT model, it runs very cool and quiet, and it will no doubt be one of the best 5700s money can buy. And speaking of money, that's really the only potential issue with this product. The price at $390 US, it's just difficult to recommend any 5700 when you can snag an XT model for, I think it's about $20 more for the cheapest AIB models. But for around $30 more, you can get pretty good quality models such as the Gigabyte 5700 XT Gaming OC, or there's the Asus TUF Gaming X3. So yeah, only $30 more for those models. It does make this particular graphics card quite hard to recommend and justifying spending the money on. Basically, you're looking at about an 8% increase in price to the XT models that I just mentioned, but you'll be gaining around 14% more performance on average. So that does make the more expensive XT models better in terms of cost per frame. For non-XT 5700 graphics cards to really make sense, you need to purchase them at or very near to the $350 US MSRP. Sadly though, the cheaper AIB models like the Sapphire Pulse and Asus Dual Fan Evo, they're priced at $370 US. I have seen PowerColor's Red Dragon 5700 selling for $360, and I'm very keen to test that model out, so hopefully I'll be able to get my hands on it in the not too distant future, as it certainly looks like it would make sense at that price point. Sadly though, at the time of making this video, that particular model is nowhere to be found. So hopefully the pricing settles down before too long, but even so, the slower RTX 2060 Super graphics cards, they start at $400. So even these pricey AIB 5700s still represent better value relative to the Nvidia competition. That said, the 5700 series isn't flawless. There are still some issues AMD really needs to address, and based on our testing, those issues are mostly to do with how the fans operate. We've seen issues where the fans don't spin up correctly or don't drop back down when at idle. Plenty of other users are reporting similar issues with AMD's fan speeds, so yeah, they really do need to fix this. Bigger issues such as crashing and games not loading hasn't been something that we've encountered. I've seen reports of stability issues from other 5700 owners, but unfortunately this isn't a problem that we've been able to replicate. But of course, we haven't been able to test a huge range of hardware like what you guys are using. There's just so many possible combinations out there, so we're going to leave the job of sorting that out to AMD. Finally, one last thing that I predict will be a bit of a point of contention with this video for some viewers will be overclocking, namely the absence of testing with soft power play tables. For those that missed it, I have done this testing in the past and found the extra overclocking headroom when removing the AMD limits wasn't really worth it. The biggest issue here isn't the small performance increase, but rather the fact that you have to remove and then reapply the mod every single time you install a new driver update. Not to mention the overclock itself has to be reapplied every time you boot the system up. You can make that a bit easier with profiles, but still, it's not exactly practical, and I personally couldn't be bothered with messing around to get those mega performance gains. Anyway, that does it for this one. That is the PowerColor RX 5700 Red Devil. As expected, it is an excellent quality graphics card, and yeah, if it could be about $370, I could certainly justify buying it, so let's hope that pricing gets a little more competitive before year's end. Anyway, that is really going to do it for this one. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, do all that stuff, and if you'd like to get more involved with the channel, chat with us on Discord, watch our monthly live streams, which we actually the monthly live stream for this month would have just happened by the time you watch that, so bad time to bring that up. But you can subscribe and check out next month's live stream, so that'll be cool. And yeah, anyway, thank you for watching. I'm your host, Steve. I'll see you again next time.